Payback in the Maybach, yeah, we roll with it. Getting payback, sending hits, we getting on with it. Hey, what's up, guys? Before we get started, I just want to give you guys a quick shout out. Whether you're listening on Spotify or watching this on YouTube, it really means a lot to the whole gang over here at Kolosal. I hope you enjoy our Neck Barham interview. You can find him at Neck Barham on Instagram and Twitter, and of course, under his name, Neck Barham, on Spotify, Apple Music, all different streaming services. Please give him a look, and please go listen to his new Ghost of Blues EP. It'll be greatly appreciated, and you guys are going to love it. Without further ado, let's get cracking. All right. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another edition of the Kolosal Podcast. Hope you guys are staying nice and warm during these cold winter months. Hopefully you guys had a good Christmas, New Year, everything, heading into 2021 safely, of course. My name's Alex. I'm joined today by Noah, and we have the absolute pleasure of being joined by one of our good friends, a talented musician, the man himself, Neck Barham. How we doing, Neck?
How's it going, guys?
Great to see you, bro. Great to see you.
Good to see you, Neck.
I'm doing well as can be right now.
Absolutely. So a little background on Neck. Neck is he's a local artist, DMV area, out of Bethesda, Maryland. I think I'm correct in saying that. And he's been putting out music for a little while in a genre that he has dubbed the trap blues. So we're really excited to hear more about it. It's truly original and in its own lane. He's paving his own lane out here. So without further ado, let's get into it. Nick, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background? I know you have an interesting family history and different nationalities sprinkled in there. So let's hear about that.
Yeah, so thanks for having me, guys, one more time. So basically, trap blues on its surface is exactly what it sounds. You know, it's just blues with a trap beat. More specifically, it's a type of blues known as pre-war blues. So it comes after, or it, I sort of sounds like the style of blues from probably around like 1910-ish up until 1940. That's pretty much the era of pre-war blues. Pre-war blues is pretty diverse in itself. There's a lot of kind of ragtime finger picking. There's a lot of slide guitar. If you guys aren't familiar with slide, it's common with a resonator. So you know those kind of like southern metal guitars y'all see? I don't know if you saw my video, but I was playing one of those.
Yep.
Those are commonly used with a slide. I don't know if I have a slide with me. I do.
I know what a slide is.
Yeah, on your finger. Yep.
And it gives you that kind of like southern twang, you know, that you hear in like country movies and shit.
Yep.
But anyway, there's mainly like two blocks of pre-war blues. There's more of like, and this is more common with female singers like Bessie Smith and Ma Rainey, Mommy Smith. These are kind of sound a bit more jazzy. They're backed by these big talented bands, trumpet players, all kinds of horns, pianos. It's got more of like a slow, jazzy kind of, you listen to it and you can tell that it's, you know, something that'd be played in like a big, extravagant music hall. But then the other side of, and that's more common, like I said, with female singers, a side of blues that's known more for male singers is more of kind of a country blues. And you kind of have the cliche of like the farmer in his front porch after like a long day's work, kind of plucking, you know, singing about his life and whatnot.
Right.
So that's a little more, I think, this kind of style that I do. And it's not just men. There's also a couple notable women like Elizabeth Cotton, Memphis Minnie, without getting too into it. But basically, I mean, I've been playing music since I was like 5. I started playing the blues since I was around 12. And then around my junior year of college, so I was like 21 when I started getting into Blind Willie McTell and Blind Willie Johnson, which kind of opened the door for pre-war blues. But the trap blues was a bit of an accident, really. I pulled up to a studio in Rockville, and I was just going to record a song. It's called Redline Blues. I'm sure y'all know.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Yep.
So I go up to record that song, and I play the first couple riffs goes up bum 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 ba da bum 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 whatever, and the engineer, he's kind of like, yo, you mind if I throw a little trap beat on this? And I was like, come on, man, I'm a blues artist, you know. It's probably best we just keep it this way. And he was like, ah. So, you know, I record the song, and then these little tricks, you know, I come out, and there they are with the fucking messing around with an 808 and little quick hi-hats and shit. But then I was like, wow, this actually really works. So I was like, you know what, fuck it, let's try this thing out. So we recorded Redline Blues, and there's this really cool trap beat to it. And then I was sold on it, because my main issue as someone who's trying to mimic pre-war blues is, if you actually listen to blues from like the 20s and the 30s, a lot of people aren't into it because our ears are kind of spoiled with really nice recording, you know, really good engineers. And so not a lot of people have the patience for like a really loud hissing in the background.
Yeah.
Or a really unillegible fucking voice. You know, it sounds like an iPhone recording. And most of it is just guitar and voice. I guess sometimes a harmonica. Yeah. You know, so people want to hear something with actual good recording, but mainly, obviously I'm in the 21st century. I do have access to better recording, but I think that unless there are obviously artists that get by with just kind of voice and guitar. Like, I'm sure there's a bunch of famous artists like that. For me at the time, I think in my age, like I said, I was 21. I'm now 23. I knew that there needed to be some kind of a percussion, and I was getting frustrated, you know, throughout the past year, because I was doing a lot of bar performances, and I really wanted a drummer. But I could never kind of really work anything out. And then it was like, yeah, there's this thing that was just kind of in my face this whole time. And the more I looked into the kind of versatility that trap beat has, the more I began to appreciate it, because I think that you can throw what's known as a trap beat behind pretty much any genre of music. That's how versatile it is.
Yeah.
And it just gives it that extra twist. It gives it that extra kick.
Yeah.
And so, but the blues in particular, I think, is all the more connected to trap music. I mean, I'm sure there's a direct like ethnographic kind of connection already, but just in terms of the style of music, there's a lot of kind of blues that's characterized with a kind of a really deep thud in the way you strum it. So ba ba da ba bum ba bum ba bum ba ba da ba bum ba bum. You know, and I was listening, and the more I thought about it after doing Redline Blues, I was like, wait, this can really work out, because this thud, cloak that with an 808. So then I was like, you know, I can really walk on into something. And I want to be careful to say, like, you know, I'm creating the genre of trap blues, because obviously I'm taking two things that already exist, right?
Right. Yeah.
Trap music and blues music. Blues music has been around for over 100 years.
Right.
And so, like, you know, the blues really, it's always getting innovated. I think it's not super popular in the mainstream like it was at one point, but it was always being innovated. So back when you had, you know, pre-war blues around like the 50s, when a lot of people in the South were migrating to Chicago and other northern cities, and the electric guitar is being introduced, and you have people like Elmore James and T-Bone Walker who are kind of pioneering the electric blues. And then you have like this certain wave of Chicago blues artists who immigrated from Mississippi. The most popular ones are probably Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters. And so they really got that city sound. So they got more of a drum. They got drums. They had like electric guitars. They threw some harmonica, some piano.
Yeah.
And then it just kept evolving. And then you have rock and roll, which is really just the blues. To be quite honest, I don't really see a difference other than they just, I guess, changed the tempo a little bit. They utilized the band more.
Right.
And so the issue that I have with saying like, oh, I'm creating this genre is, if you go back to like around like the 50s and 60s, people believed that Elvis Presley, for instance, created rock and roll. And it's and I mean, I think now a lot of us are realizing that that's not true.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
He
yeah, of
was
course.
singing just black people's music. He was singing the blues. He was singing Big Mama Thornton, uh, Chuck Berry, Leadbelly, you know,
Right.
directly or indirectly. And and people, and it's frustrating because everyone knows who Led Zeppelin is, for instance. Everyone knows who Bob Dylan is.
Mm.
Everyone knows who the Rolling Stones are, who Eric Clapton is, who Jimi Hendrix is. But their music, as innovative as they were, and you have to give them credit for that, it wasn't original in my opinion. They weren't creating anything new. They were just playing old blues songs. Every time I listen to a Led Zeppelin track, I'm like, oh wait, no, that's Sonny Boy Williamson too. Or I listen to Bob Dylan, I'm like, no, this is straight up Blind Willie McTell. And so I'm just gonna like keep reiterating that I'm not gonna sell myself short as an artist. I do think I'm innovating the genre,
Right.
and I'm using the attraction of trap music to shine a light on what I see as a forgotten genre.
Yeah.
So I want people to be like, to have this, trap beat to kind of draw this new audience, and then they'd be like, yes, it's cool music. Let me look into it. You look in my bio and you can look at my website and you can read all about the pre-war blues artists. And I think as I make more projects, I'm going to be more explicit about who's behind these tracks because, I mean, every artist, you can kind of, the song can be original. They can have written the song.
Yeah.
You can kind of pick out what pieces were influenced by where. And because my favorite pre-war blues artists are not known in the mainstream, they're largely forgotten, even though we see their influences every day.
Yeah.
Because of that, I want to be more explicit in my coming projects of who was behind my music. So like if I write a song, I'll say, you know what, I wrote this song, but Leadbelly also wrote it with me, and Blind Lemon Jefferson, he wrote it with me. And that's why I named that EP Ghosts of Blues, because I really felt like I was kind of in touch with Ghosts of Blues. And I have this studio that I rigged up in my closet ever since Corona, and I have a couple of people on my wall. I don't know if you can see it, but let me see. There's Leadbelly over there, Mammy Smith over there.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah.
Over there. There's some other stuff on top you can't really see, but there's Robert Johnson over here.
Yeah, that's dope.
Kind of have them sort of surrounding me. I'm not superstitious or like really spiritual or anything at all. It's mostly just kind of like a placebo thing where I have these quote unquote ghosts of blues around me, and I'm playing these songs that really like feel as if we're working on this together in a way. And obviously these were descendants of slaves. Pre-war blues, they're like first generation, second generation to third generation, like freed African Americans.
Right.
And so slavery was right around the corner. Like Leadbelly, for instance, was probably born in like 1880s, late 1880s. So I'm sure his father was born. I'm not going to really do the math yet, but the point is it was right around the corner. And throughout slavery, kinship was really important. It's a lot of West African, and I think African spirituality in general through the past up until today is really connected with your ancestors, and basically your ancestors feeding you vital information. Yeah. And when I grew up in Brazil for a large part, I was often surrounded by, because I mean, Brazil had the most slaves out of, I think, any country in the world. Africa, especially places like Bahia, which is northern Brazil, has a huge influence in Brazil. I did a lot of capoeira, which is like a Brazilian martial arts, and I grew up, um, uh, kind of being basically taught things about kinship and learning from your ancestors, and whether it be your direct ancestors like my great 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 grandparents, or just people in general who came before you.
Right.
And so that's basically why I call it Ghost of Blues, because like I said, I'm not necessarily spiritual or religious in any way. I see it as I just see it as kind of like it makes sense, like scientifically,
Right.
we're sharing our DNA and our genetics throughout.
Yeah.
And whether it's your DNA through your blood, or through your art and your music and things you write, if I pick up a guitar and I write a song, like I said earlier, I know I wrote it, but I also know Charlie Patton wrote it, or Blind Willie Johnson wrote it or something.
Those influences are always present in whatever
Yeah.
you're working on,
and I know I kind of went off went off track a little bit, but kind of to wrap everything up.
Yeah, no, super interesting.
Just to conclude it in a short sentence, Trap Blues, the project of Trap Blues, obviously I want to be a successful musician, but I think the main motivation for Trap Blues is to use the modern attraction of trap music to resurrect the ghost of blues.
Awesome. No,
That's very cool.
That's very cool. Yeah. I guess you were talking about your latest EP, Ghost of Blues, so I think we have to touch on it. 3 different tracks on there: Stolen Pony, Lines Outside with You, and Black Moth Moan. To me, each express a very different sound, very different sentiment within that trap blues and Ghost of Blues sort of idea. And I don't. For me, the song Black Moth Moan kind of stood out to me a little bit. Obviously, Stolen Pony is kind of I say Stolen Pony and Lines Outside with You are definitely bangers. But I would say Black Moth Moan is maybe a little bit more deep. And I guess if you wanted to touch on that, talk about that song a little bit. I'm gonna talk about the project in general, but
yeah. So when I've been playing music all my life, and then I started playing in bars, and then I thought the next step was to record. And when I first started wanting to record music, I thought the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna release an album, right? Because I had all these songs I've written. I was like, all right, I want to have a big album, a catalog of everything I've written. I then, when I started to get more involved with how being a starting musician works, I started to understand that you can, but the way I wanted to do is I didn't want to put like a big album at first. I thought, all right, I'm gonna put a single out, wait a bit, let it marinate, put another single out, because you start off, you don't really have anyone listening to you, so I'm not going to put out a big album if I have no ears.
Sure.
So first song I released was Redline Blues. It wasn't the first one I recorded, it was the first one I had the confidence to release.
Right.
That gave me a very marginal amount of listeners, but I think it was enough to put out a project that wasn't just a single. And so originally I wanted Ghost of Blues to be an album, but based on the amount of ears I had, I figured I'm gonna start off with just 3 songs. And luckily Stolen Pony in particular gave me that next level of an audience where I do believe I'm now ready to put out a full album and have enough people who listen to me regularly.
Yeah.
But so Ghost of Blues was 3 songs, and they were direct influences of Memphis Jug Band, Blind Lemon Jefferson, and Charlie Patton, who I think, amongst many others, but those were the 3 main people I was listening to over the summer.
Yeah.
So Black Moth Moan, it's influenced largely by a song called KC Moan, which is, I'm not sure if people really know who actually wrote it because there's a bunch of different renditions, but the version that I was most familiar with was by Memphis Jug Band. and I was just kind of playing Casey Moan in my room, and this happens pretty often. So after like the first line, I kind of ended up taking it another direction.
Yeah.
And when I piece it back, I see, oh, that's a bit of Lemon Jefferson. That's a bit of Lead Belly. That's a bit of Patton, which I can get into. But it's called Black Moth Moan because there's a part in the song where I say, I think I hear a black snake crawl and moan. That's because one of the songs I was listening to that summer a lot was a song by Blind Lemon Jefferson. I think it was recorded in 28 called Black Snake Moan. And that whole song, I mean, most of my songs, but that song in particular is filled with different kind of traditional blues lines, so that if anyone really wanted to sort of dig into, and I have the lyrics on Genius, but if anyone ever wanted to like dig into those lyrics, it kind of gives them a trail to pre-war blues. And so that song, the title Black Moth Moan, is a twist on the title Black Snake Moan. But it was called Black Moth Moan because when I picked up it's kind of a cool thing, when I picked up my guitar to start recording it, this black moth kind of flew out of the guitar.
Oh, that's sick.
I was having a lot of trouble naming the song, so I had Black Moth Moan as like a, I'll keep that there until I figure out a name. I couldn't figure out a name in time, so I was like, yeah, whatever, Black Moth Moan, that's fine. But so the way I write my lyrics is I kind of I'm playing my guitar, I'm playing my music, and I just sing whatever comes to mind.
Kind of top lining, and yeah.
The more I practice it, the more certain lines start to stick. So I actually never really know what my songs are about until I look at it retrospectively. And I can just make my best guess. But so the song starts off saying, I think I hear something in my home. I think I hear something in my home. I had just gotten back from DC that summer, back to my parents' house, and I was quarantining in my basement. And you know how it is when you're seeing, like, I was just hearing random shit, and the reason why I was hearing random shit is because I have like my laundry and my dryer down here. I have the kitchen down here. I have all these things that kind of make these little noises here and there.
All the pipes sort of crawling, and yeah.
And so I smoked some Ramba at the time, and I was just like, when you're high and you just hear like a little ping there and a ping there, you're just like, So I'm playing my guitar and I start going, I think I hear something in my home. I think I hear something in my home. I'm all alone. Right. Because I'm quarantined. I'm alone as shit right now. And then it goes, the next line I believe is, I think I heard my guitar strum alone. I heard my guitar strum all on its own. This was what really like kind of freaked me out, because I was going to sleep that night and my guitars are in my studio closet and I just hear my acoustic guitar strum on its own. And I'm like, what the actual hell? Like, that's creepy. Like I said, like 3 times already, I'm not superstitious, but still, I was like, guitars can't just strum on its own. Oh, much later, I discovered what was happening is I didn't put in my foam up correctly, my acoustic foam, so it would fall, and when it fell, it would gently kind of hit the strings of my resonator guitar, which is a really loud guitar. You don't really need to strum it that hard. But I didn't know at the time that these acoustic foams were falling and strumming on my guitar. All I knew is my guitar is strumming on its own. So next line is, I heard my guitar strum all on its own. I ain't alone, there's something wrong. And then it goes, and a gypsy woman told me, go alone, go alone, go alone. A gypsy woman told me, go get yourself a black cat bone. I think a gypsy woman might be slightly derogatory.
It's okay.
If you're not looking at the context, and the context is that a gypsy woman is a very common phrase in blues, and it's basically just a fortune teller. Yeah. And so I wasn't. This line was really just like a classic blues line, right? Like, a gypsy woman told me, go alone. Yeah. In retrospect, I will be touring, going on a road trip through the U.S. kind of as soon as vaccines get distributed properly.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows about?
Hey,
But
can't come soon enough.
that's hype.
But yeah, keep them coming, mail-in vaccines. But anyway, so I have this idea is that like I want to travel. I want to travel the South, the West Coast, East Coast.
Yeah.
And I want to do it on my own. You know, like just a classic traveling bluesman. And at the time, I was kind of like flirting with the idea, but I wasn't as set on as I am now. So I look back, I'm thinking, you know, maybe that's what I was thinking about when I say a gypsy woman told me to go alone. As if that blues line was, you know, telling my fortune. And she said, go get yourself a black cat bone. A black cat bone is quite literally the bone of a black cat.
Yeah.
It's a common phrase in blues because it's like a voodoo charm. There's a big voodoo influence on the blues. And a black cat bone is, you know, you get the bone of a black cat, keep it with you, that's good luck. If you're a traveling bluesman and you're on the road, you know, and you're hoboing, you don't have much money, you know, it's dangerous. Keep a black cat bone with you, right? And that's to me what that line was about, is this fortune teller telling me hit the road by yourself, but carry that black cat bone, you know, bring like some good luck with you. And then I believe I'm kind of blanking on my own song. All right, and then it goes, I think I hear Black Snake Crawl Moan. Like I said earlier, that's just an allusion to Blind Lemon Jefferson.
Right, yeah.
It's just paying tribute to Blind Lemon Jefferson, because there are parts of that song where melodically it sounds like a Lemon Jefferson song. Other parts it sounds like a Leadbelly song. Other parts it sounds like a Memphis Jug Band song. And that's not a me thing, that's any blues artist. You kind of hear sort of bits and pieces that sort of connect with each other because the blues is a connected genre.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of wanting to shout them out almost indirectly in this particular song.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, a Black Snake Crawling and Moan, although I'm just trying to like cite a Blind Lemon Jefferson song, it's back to that theme of there's kind of just like something in the air right now where I am in my basement. There's just something going on, a snake crawling. I'm not alone. And then it goes, and when I find her, she goes away. I'm all alone. I kind of spat that out. I felt that change in chord, and that's just what I sang. But what I think it means is, and when I find her, she goes away. I'm all alone. So when I say I find her, I'm not talking literally about a woman. I might be, but I don't think I am. I'm talking about something that I'm looking for. You know, I'm hitting the road, I'm traveling, I'm trying to find success, but when I find her, she goes away.
Yeah.
And I think it's because, you know, I don't think I ever will be satisfied. When I released my first song, I was like, you know what, if I can have at least 100 dedicated listeners, that's good enough for me. When that happens, it's like, no, I'm not happy. I need a couple thousand. Then when that happens, it's like, no, you know, this is just like not enough. Like I want to keep going. Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of artists feel like. Even when they feel like they hit their peak, they're never really happy. They're never satisfied. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. You know, when I find her, when I find what I'm looking for, it goes away. So you have to keep looking. And then I mention, and I'm going to Louisiana. Yes, I am. Go get myself a mojo hand. It's the same concept. I'm going to Louisiana. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. There's a Leadbelly song where he pretty much says that, I think verbatim. I'm going to Louisiana. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. There's also a Muddy Water song and a Lightning Hopkins song where they talk about going to Louisiana to get a mojo hand. Right. And so that was another direct allusion to an early blues song or a couple blues songs. But basically, it's back to this idea that I am going to go to Louisiana. Louisiana is Mississippi. It's Florida. It's Texas. It's New York. It's Vegas. Louisiana is just me traveling to play in another place. It's me traveling on the road and playing the blues on the road. So when I say I'm going to Louisiana, yes, I am. It's, you know, when you want to do something like that, particularly going by yourself and kind of hoboing around, everyone's going to tell you not to do it. Everyone's telling me not to do it. I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to do it. And so I'm saying that song, I'm going to Louisiana. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Oh, yes, I am. I'm going to get myself a mojo hand. Mojo hand is the same concept as a black cat bone. It's just a lucky charm from voodoo. It's really just a sack of little charms, and it's just that same concept of I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna try and get some luck on the way, and then it just ends with listen to my rider when she moans. Um, the song Casey Moan is kind of sounds a bit like that. Like listen to someone when she moans. To me, it was back to my guitar. My guitar strummed on its own, but when I'm on the road, a rider in the blues is like a shorty, right? That's your baby. Mm. In this case, my baby is my guitar because that's who's going to be accompanying me.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying, listen to my rider when she moans. When I play that guitar, when I hit that slide, listen to her moan. Because that's what you should do. You should listen to my guitar. But that's why I'm going on the road for them to listen to it. And so, in hindsight, I at the time I was just gluing random cliche little blues phrases together. Mm. What I didn't realize is I think subliminally, subconsciously, trying to convince myself to do the thing. So I didn't realize that back then, but I really do think that my subconscious was really trying to encourage me to hit the road.
Yeah, I mean, what I really enjoy when I listen to your work is it's like you're putting together a mosaic of different influences, different blues artists, different cliches, but also things that are just very present within the blues genre, and you're putting them together to form a nice picture, which comes together very nicely in Ghost of Blues. I think for an artist who is as young as you are, who is you haven't put out a ton of music, there's a credible focus to that EP that is rare amongst some, especially amongst the first EP. So I think that was incredibly impressive to me when you put that out, and I think I'm really excited personally to hear your album. I mean, I think it's going to be something pretty special for our listeners to listen to. And so, having said that, I kind of want to touch a little bit more on your background personally. I know you're a huge Beatles fan as well, and you're Liverpudlian background, if you will. Liverpool is a city that has a very rich music history, of course. Has that had an impact on your work as well, on who you listen to, on how you write, all that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. So my family, my mother's side is from Brazil. My father's side is from the UK. And I think a lot of people who are from England or who have family in England are in a similar situation where it's such a small country that as expanded as your family gets, you end up having family from all over. Mm. I would say my family is mostly in London, right in the center of London. I have family in Oxford. I was born in Oxford. Mm. My father grew up in boarding school, I think probably near Newcastle, somewhere really kind of dark and
up north somewhere.
Yeah, up there somewhere he doesn't want to talk about. But yeah, my family. So my family isn't Scouse. My family's I have more of a posh family.
Okay.
Liverpool, however, was always a huge influence on me because it's my favorite place to go in England is Liverpool. Mm. I think that like people in London, man, they're just so rude. They're just really they're mean people, man. It's like people say New Yorkers are rude. You should go to London.
Yeah.
In Oxford, I just feel like everyone's smarter than me. Even my waiter.
Yeah.
Like, shut up, right? But all jokes aside, no one's nicer than a Scouser. You go to Liverpool, everyone's so friendly.
Yeah.
I think the city has just such a kind of collegial atmosphere. Mm. It's really like a magical place, in my opinion. I've been a Liverpool fan my whole life, ever since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
And so, obviously, Liverpool means a lot to me. When I was 5 years old, I had a family friend who was a huge Beatles fan, and he wanted to introduce my older brother to the Beatles. He said, "You're 7, you're old enough to listen to this. Let's listen to the Beatles." Mm. I was 5, right? So he was like, you don't need to hear this. And my brother, I just remember, I have a clear image of when I was 5, my brother just kind of looking really bored. Mm. And I'm kind of lurking in the background. I'm just like, my jaw was dropped. That was the first time I heard that. I heard the Beatles, and I was just like, it was like trying drugs for the first time, honestly. It was just like it really felt like it was really hitting a spot, you know?
Yeah.
And since that summer, I just became a huge Beatle fan as a little kid. I would brush my hair down like they have, you know.
You get the helmet hair.
I would do that. I remember my teachers when I was taking school pictures were trying to brush. I was like, "Fuck out of my face, man."
I'm Paul
and,
McCartney.
yeah, little young Paul. The other thing is, you know, I was a bit of a schemer as a little child. You know, I was really I just like always wanted to hit on girls in my kindergarten class or my first grade class.
Young hustler.
And I remember watching A Hard Day's Night when I was a little kid. I'm like, wow, they got swarms of women just chasing them, fainting for them. I gotta be like the Beatles, you know?
Had a lot of game.
Yeah, I would try to mimic, you know, John Lennon and shit. But you know, in all seriousness though, I grew up in a lot. I lived everywhere. I lived in Turkey when I was really young, and I barely remember it. I lived in Brazil for a long time, and I studied in the British schooling system. I lived in Miami for a bit. And the point is everywhere I went, I was always trying to collect new Beatle albums, whether it was someone I knew giving it to my birthday or trying to get it for Christmas, or, you know, I'd do something really good, I would get rewarded, you know, let me get a Beatle album. You know, you're like 7, you don't have an income, you just gotta kind of scheme your way to get these albums. But I would listen to them every single night, over and over and over. And I was playing guitar. I started off playing with like which I broke all strings on my guitar. I had one string, which I think I was quite fortunate to do, because a lot of blues artists start off with something called a diddly bow, which is just like one string, because it really just gets that rhythm in you. And I didn't discover the blues until I was 12, which is a whole nother story. But I do appreciate the fact that I listened to the Beatles I still listen to the Beatles, but I do appreciate that I listened to the Beatles as a child, and I started listening to the blues right before I became a teenager up until now. Because the blues, I think, is, at least on its surface, a much more cynical music genre. It's a little darker. It's more explicit. When your morals become a little more ambiguous as you get older, and when you start seeing different and experiencing darker parts of life, the blues really starts to appeal to you, or at least to me. Whereas as a child, where everything's really colorful and magical, I think the Beatles were a great influence on me, because, you know, when you have songs like I Am the Walrus, you know, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, Eleanor Rigby, Run for Your Life, all the way down to like Love Me Do, they're very imaginative songs. So as a child, you're listening to this like a day in a life or something, and you got like a whole imagination just going crazy. But musically, because their chord structures were so just unique, because they use so many different notes and sounds, I think it was good that I listened to it at such a young age, because I think that if you're trying to get influenced by the Beatles right now, you're going to have trouble really sort of matching that. But as a child, when it's, the way I see it, it's like learning a language. It's easier to learn a language when you're a little kid, not at this age.
You're a sponge. You take everything in. And
exactly. And so I'm glad I had, and at the end of the day, you know, they had a very positive message. I think it was about love. You know, all you need is love. It was, I think, in its catalog, if you listen to the first song, like Please Please Me, She Loves You, they're very kind of sweet songs, you know.
Yeah.
All the way down to their last album they did in Abbey Road, where the last, really, I think there's Her Majesty after that, but
yeah,
pretty much like the last song ends with this line where it's like, something like the love you take is equal to love you give, vice versa. I can't remember right now.
Yeah.
But the point is they had a very positive influence. And then the blues came around, and it's like, oh, these guys are cheating on their wives. These women are killing their husbands. Everything in life is dark and miserable, but let's just get drunk and forget about it. You know, then it's like, oh, there's this side of life, you know. To me, the blues, the real essence of the blues is the unapologetic ambiguity of human morality. It is the imperfection of man. That's what it is. I think it's the unapologetic imperfection of humans. It's about, you know, I killed my wife, but that's because I loved her. Well, what are you gonna do about it? You know, it's I gambled all night. I did a lot of cocaine all night, but I do actually kind of want to be with my family. You know, it's kind of like that's as far as I'll get into it right now. And so I do think that listening to the blues when I got a bit older was probably around 12 was probably best. But back to like more into like a musical influence, obviously the blues is my main influence. But I think having listened to the Beatles so much growing up, it gives me that little something different in some of my songs. I think it gives my songs a bit more energy.
Yeah.
A bit more life to them. And so, you know, I think that no matter what music you do, you can never go wrong with listening to the Beatles.
Yeah, well said. Well said, absolutely. Noah, you got any questions for Neck?
Oh, definitely. And Neck, this has all been great. Just how you're explaining all this stuff. I would never know this about the blues and, you know, your creative process in general. It's very cool how that whole trap blues, you know, the genre that you're looking to push, and you're saying, you know, you're creating, but it's not really you. You have all these other people from the back of blues history that are coming with you to kind of bring it back to the forefront, which I assume is one of your main goals.
Yep.
To bring blues back.
Yep.
And for me personally, my exposure for blues is like, I don't know if you ever listened to like Stevie Ray, and some Kebmo, and some old BB King. I like some BB King. And I just wanted to ask you, what kind of are your thoughts on those more modern artists, not necessarily BB King, but more, you know, Kebmo and I guess Stevie Ray, because he was a little bit later.
Yeah, I like Kebmo a lot. He's got a great slide. I think that I think my favorite song that he recorded actually is America the Beautiful, but like slide guitar version. And I think just because, I mean, he makes it sound so bluesy, and you know, it's easy to I don't want to get too political, but you know, the blues is politics, so I will. It is easy to lose faith in America.
Yeah, definitely.
Particularly, not just the past 4 years, but I think the past 4 years really kind of shined the light to. It forced us to, you know, reckon with a lot of horrible things about American history, and but you have, you know, I think the blues was born out of American sin. The blues was born through the pain of brought by America's institutions. But yet you have this blues artist, Kebmo, singing America the Beautiful. And, you know, and as a first generation immigrant, I mean, I got my passport. I became an American citizen. I think I must have been probably like 2015, so 17, something like that, 18, whatever. I can't remember right now, but
deep into your life.
I felt a bit of, you know, I felt like a bit of a patriot. It helped that Obama was president, because he was, you know, people can say what they want about him, but he was a huge role model for me as an immigrant. He really kind of sold me on this idea of the American dream, and you know, and even though it's not really ever a reality, but at least striving for it. And so, and I do think there is a bit of cynical patriotism in the blues, and so that's why I love Beck. And it's just, he does a really beautiful job in that song. I also like I think it's called She Can Dance. The other thing I like about Kebmo did a project with Taj Mahal, which is a little more modern blues artist I really like. And when you listen to a lot of Kev Mo interviews, you can tell he's one of these like more modern blues artists who really understand the ethos of early blues. Stevie Ray Vaughan, on the other hand, it's not my preferred style of blues, but you have to respect him as a guitarist, obviously. I mean, you have to, you know, Pride and Joy
It's crazy what he does.
is a great song
Or
that
did.
comes to mind. I can see a lot of Charlie Patton influence on him. Charlie Patton's my favorite blues artist. Like Texas Flood comes to mind as well. I like Stevie Ray Vaughan mainly because of the kind of mentorship he got from Albert King. When I was in high school, you asked a bit about modern blues. When I was in high school, I was really into electric blues, Chicago blues, kind of like late 50s, early 60s blues. So when I was in high school, my favorite artist was Muddy Waters, my favorite blues artist. Albert King was maybe tied. I loved Albert King. I also was really into B.B. King, but Howlin' Wolf as well, and Sonny Boy Williamson too. But if you listen to Stevie Ray Vaughan's album with Albert King, you hear some of Albert King's pep talks to Stevie Ray Vaughan, you can really see this young blues artist who wants to learn being sort of mentored by, you know, one of the greats, and Albert King is one of the greatest influencers on the blues. Not influencers, I meant innovators, well, influencers too. But and then B.B. King, I mean, you can never go wrong with B.B. King. B.B. King is like the ambassador of the blues. He is the one artist that you can kind of have a safe bet that if someone knows about music but they don't know about the blues, they know about B.B. King.
Right.
I still remember when he died in 2012. That was really terrible.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that my interest in music has been kind of going back in time pretty chronologically. So I started with the Beatles, and I got into Chuck Berry when I got into the Beatles. And when I met the blues when I was 12, I basically kind of, long story short, I stumbled onto a Memphis Slim album called The Blues Is Everywhere. And the album name was very enticing. And so I gave it a shot. And so I started listening to Memphis Slim, and I kind of looked at some of the features on his album. And like, okay, Sonny Boy Williamson, who's this guy? And then got into Muddy Waters. And then I got into, like I said, the more sort of modern, like city blues and Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and them. And then I started listening to some of their early stuff. I'm like, oh, this kind of sounds like Robert Johnson. Let's listen to some Robert Johnson. There was a summer when I was absolutely obsessed with Robert Johnson. My phone was broken. And so I was like, you know, I was kind of like sort of hoboing between DC and Maryland that summer through the metro and buses and everything. And I didn't have a phone. So I was like, I might as well read whatever nerdy thing. So I get this Robert Johnson book, and I'm just getting really, and that was also when that Netflix documentary about him came out, which I had kind of problems with. But yeah, I got really into Robert Johnson. And I was like, yeah, this pre-war blues is really great. And I realized, wait, none of these songs, he's a brilliant guitarist, but these aren't really his songs. And I keep looking back. And then I fell in love with Blind Willie Johnson and Blind Willie McTell. I really got sold on the pre-war blues, and I got more used to the sound. And then there's too many artists to really like talk about, but I think my absolute favorites ended up being Charlie Patton, Blind Lemon Jefferson, Blind Blake, Lead Belly, particularly Charlie Patton. And these are some of the first like country blues artists to ever get recorded. So a lot of these songs are from like around like 1928.
That's cool. So you're really just going back, you know, to the roots as far as you could.
Yeah. And it's not like, I don't want to sound like a hipster, you know, like.
No, not at all. That just shows that you're a student of the game and you're interested.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But I think it's also like, I think it's just kind of a coincidence that, in my opinion, late 20s, early 30s is the richest era of the blues. There's just so much there, such amazing music. And, you know, I love the mystery of it. I mean, a lot of these artists, there's only like one known photo of them.
That's sick.
Not a lot of people know anything about them other than sort of just things that you kind of like telephone stories, you know, things you hear from like people, like anecdotes from other traveling blues artists who knew someone who knew them.
Sure.
And so because there's so much mystery and because there's only a certain amount we know about them for sure, you know, you feel like you're getting to know them purely through their music. And because it's only the voice and the guitar and it's such a like low quality recording, it feels very interpersonal. And it's something like, you know, a lot of these artists, they were born kind of exactly 100 years from when I was born. So I was born in 97. Some of these artists were born around 1897. And they're recording around the age that I'm recording. And so we lived completely different lives, right? You know, I come from Brazil and England. I've traveled around, you know, I've been in all kinds of situations, whether it was, you know, in Kenya or Egypt or some farm in Brazil for a few months. I had I don't want to get too into it, but I had a pretty strange upbringing in my opinion.
Yeah,
and it was nothing like these people who are practically my age 100 years apart, but I'm listening to them as if I'm sitting with them, having a drink with them. And although our lives are completely different, a lot of it was very similar. A lot of the stuff they sing about and talk about is stuff that I do feel like I can relate to, you know? There's, I mean, we're obviously we're in a global pandemic, we're quarantined. We hear about people dying every day. You hear the sirens of ambulances rushing up and down the street every night. There's an incredible amount of, you know, injustice going around in the world. It's not unsimilar to what was going on in their lives. They grew up around epidemics. A lot of their songs are about them dying, their wives dying, their children dying, their parents, whatever. People were just, Charlie Patton said it was like murder, people dying every day. A lot of it from diseases.
Yeah. Spanish flu, I guess, wouldn't have been that far off,
so
right?
the Spanish flu, I think, really kicked off a lot of what the blues is about, because the blues is really about a reckoning with an early death. It was like the prospect of an early death. What am I going to do? Am I going to try and live a really nice life, maybe get into heaven, or am I just going to sin as much as I can until I die? But you know, a lot of these artists, they had a lot of love, they had a lot of anger. Like Charlie Patton has just some of the most beautiful songs that a lot of people would be familiar with because they were kind of ripped off by a lot of white artists later on, which is a whole nother deal. But he obviously had a lot of emotion in him, but at the same time, he was an abuser, he was an alcoholic, he was a bit of a degenerate. And, you know, like I said, the blues is all about the unapologetic imperfection of humanity. And, you know, and the things that were so wrong about him make him, I think, even more appealing in particular. And so you got this guy, Charlie Patton, who is would be around my age 100 years ago, who was recording and who is the biggest influence on me. The song Stolen Pony, which is by far my most popular song, direct influenced from Charlie Patton. Charlie Patton has a song called Pony Blues. Sunhouse has another song called Pony Blues. Charlie Patton has a song called Stone Pony Blues. Obviously Stolen Pony is my own original song,
right?
But so much of it is from the ethos of Charlie Patton, his singing style, his guitar style, his storytelling style. And he was, I think he was like 5'4", really small little guy. No one knew what his race was. Some people thought he was Puerto Rican. He was black, white, Native American. He had kind of red hair. No one, you look at him, you would never see anything like him. And he grew up on a plantation. Dockery Farms. He was a really, really entertaining performer. So he ended up going on the road, oftentimes to Sunhouse. And he was a hollerer because he was a small guy, but his voice was like a howler. He influenced Howlin' Wolf, whose name is Howlin' Wolf for a reason. And damn, where was I even going with this? I kind of forget. The point is, though, what was your question, man?
I was asking you about like your opinion of the modern artists.
Yeah, I don't know how I ended up talking about Charlie Patton again.
No,
Um,
because he's one of your biggest influences.
but
Because
yeah, so
I asked you, you said I was saying like you're a student of the game, like you're looking
oh
at
yeah,
the
yeah,
roots. Yeah, so that's why you're talking about Charlie Patton
yeah. But yeah, you guys should
and
definitely.
his expression was a big thing that you were talking about.
Yeah, well, yeah. So exactly. So you know, when people, you know, we all went to the same college. You know,
Mhm.
you see someone with like a fancy job and LinkedIn, but you're also like, all right, I remember you doing a line off of like a toilet seat. You know, so like, I
Jesus.
think we're all familiar with this kind of duality of degeneracy and
Duality of man.
yeah.
Mhm.
So and yeah, this duality of
The expression, yeah.
and you know and intelligence and emotion and all this stuff. So it's like, you know, when you hear about these blues artists barrel housing, which is pretty much just like a party, really. It's like, you know, a barrel house was where it was a prohibition era, so a little place where they can like drink together. You have blues artists singing, and so you know the blues artist, like early blues, it's hard to see nowadays, but it's something that you would basically throw a banger to. Except instead of a large speaker, you have a person, right?
Right.
Mhm.
And so, you know, living through the roller coaster that was college, um, there is a bit of similarity to what one of these blues artists' lives were like. And I'm not trying to say my life was anywhere near as troubled as a lot of theirs. Most of these artists died between the ages of like 30 and 40, I would
Right.
say on average.
Mm.
A lot of these artists grew up poor, got ripped off by record dealers, never really got any money. A lot of them never even really got famous until after they died. So I don't mean to create any sort of parallel in terms of
Mm-mm.
a privileged life in comparison to an unprivileged life. However, you know, everyone feels pain, everyone feels hardship.
Right.
The degrees obviously vary, but they lived a lot of these people, not all of them, but a lot of these people lived a very exciting life. There was drugs, alcohol, sex, everywhere. I mean, it's people say rock and roll is drugs, sex, and rock and roll, whatever. That's the blues. That's really what the blues is. You have, I mean, a lot of these blues artists carried around guns and knives, and you know, Leadbelly was like a second degree murderer twice, broke out of prison, all this stuff. Like these weren't a lot of these blues artists live very complicated lives.
Mhm.
And one of the songs in Ghost of Blues, Lines Outside of You, is it's sort of mirroring a couple cocaine songs about from early blues. So like there's a Memphis Jump Band song called Cocaine Blues, which the main couple lines of mine are very similar to. And I keep singing about all this dope in Avalon. Avalon to me, obviously we're all familiar with the Avalon. It's not necessarily literally the Avalon. Many times it is, but the Avalon to me is
The
represented.
Fratalon.
Yeah.
Avalon, Mississippi.
Exactly. So this is the thing. The Avalon to me just represented a place from college where people got together and did all kinds of things. There's a song called Avalon Blues by Mississippi John Hurt, who is from Avalon, Mississippi. And Avalon represents in that song um, early Mississippi blues, and is creating a parallel between a college lifestyle and a barrel housing 1920s Mississippi lifestyle, and the same kind of sort of degeneracy going on.
That's very clever.
You know, I started writing that song. It was this past summer. I was in the balcony of the Ave, and no one was there. You're used to people coming in and out of the Ave all the time. Because of coronavirus, it was like a ghost town.
Right.
So I'm playing guitar in the balcony and I'm just hollering, "Is there anybody here? It's a ghost town, baby. It's a ghost town, baby." And you know, I think about Avalon, Mississippi, and you know, places like Vicksburg, Mississippi, um, so I'm kind of drawing blanks right now, but all these different places, or like Abilene, Texas, these places who were like rich social centers of blues culture, who you go down there, and a lot of these places are ghost towns, whether it's literally a ghost town, there's no one there, or there are people there, but you would never think it used to be kind of like the center of blues culture.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, literally on my side, it's a ghost town. Everyone kind of left the Ave. And then Avalon, Mississippi, which represents all kinds of parts of Mississippi that these people are from. It's a ghost town there as well. Because it was a cocaine song, I also kind of imagine it's a ghost town. Everyone's all like doped up, just walking around like ghosts looking for the next fix. You know, but yeah, so that song is drawing, because people like to talk about the blues being about sadness, despair, struggle. It's a huge pillar of the blues, but in my opinion, you cannot say that's what the blues itself is about. There are many parts of the blues. The Lines Outside with You was paying tribute to the part of the blues that was about partying. People don't realize a lot of the blues was about partying. It was about drugs. It was about alcohol. It was about sex. It was about degeneracy. And it wasn't, and it's similar to, you know, a lot of hip hop where people are like, songs only about women and drugs and guns, like it's not deep. It is fucking deep, because, you know, you go back to blues from the 1920s, they're also singing about murder and drugs and women and drinking. And, you know, they like I said, the blues, there's so much about death in the blues, about you personally looking introspectively and thinking, wow, I do not have a lot of time left in this world. So I'm going to go. I have about 10, 20 years left of me tops. I'm going to go do some fuck shit, you know?
Yeah.
I'm going to go barrel housing, cocaine blues, right? It's either that or give me pure religion, gospel blues. And a lot of early blues is this dichotomy between the idea of a short life. Am I going to live up to it and basically kind of party my ass off and sin as much as I can and enjoy my time while I'm here? Or am I going to live a family lifestyle, a godly lifestyle? I'm not going to indulge in any sinful activity, so that when I die soon enough, when judgment day comes, I'll make it to heaven. And, you know, I can only really do sort of inductive reasoning on this, but I do think that a lot of these artists who had very religious backgrounds, when they played the blues, they began to be lured into this lifestyle. This lifestyle started to appeal to them, but because of their religious background, there was a very heavy weight on their conscience.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you do all this fun, sinful activity, but then at the end of the night, you're sad as hell. I should not have done that. God's not, he's going to punish me. My family, my community is not going to like me. Let me play the blues and sing about the struggle. So the blues, you might be singing about God, and you might be singing about death. You might be singing about partying and adultery, gambling, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, it's this constant struggle, this eternal and internal struggle of trying to live this dichotomous lifestyle. And, you know, and I think a lot of people, and you mentioned BB King. BB King also has a song similar to this, where it's very similar to this like pre-war blues rhetoric called Nightlife, where he goes like, he's basically saying like, this nightlife, it's fucked up, it makes me feel bad, but it's my life.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, sure.
And so, yeah, it's a lot to do with shame. And so something like Lines Outside with You, which on its surface just sounds like a fun little cocaine trap blues song, there's all these different elements. And if I were to get like deep into the lyrics itself, I'm drawing a lot of similarities between actual experiences I had in college. There's one latter verse which is a very literal experience that I had, but it's basically delivered through a blues medium, because you know, I'm trying to make that connection. And so Without rambling too long, I'm drinking coffee, by the way. Speaking of
No, dude. We love hearing more about your creative process and what makes you tick.
Without rambling too long, I think the Ghost of, if I can just bring it back to the Ghost of Blues, that EP, you have these 3 songs where Black Moth Moan is about motivation and trying to make it as an artist by myself.
Yep.
Then you have Lines Outside with You, which is about this kind of party aspect of the blues that I think is overlooked and forgotten, but that has all these other layers to it. And Lines Outside with You is also kind of a reflection of my past 4 years.
Okay.
And then you have Stolen Pony. I don't mean it super literally, by the way. I'm not trying to.
Yeah.
Not super literally.
But then you have Stolen Pony, which to me is about agency, but it's also like the rawest, more like, if I were to say this is what the epitome of trap blues is, of a pre-war blues sound, of a Charlie Patton sound, with a very heavy trappy to it, that's what, you know, it is. So, you know, I wasn't surprised that Stolen Pony would be the song in that EP to bring me to the next kind of step in my musical journey.
Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, that's last awesome. Question from me, and this kind of goes back to what you've been saying about, you know, the whole mission that you're on in this journey. What would you want the average music listener to know about blues?
That's a good question.
Thanks.
The blues, I think it's mischaracterized. I think most people think of the blues of sad music as sad music. And there is a lot of sadness in the blues. But the blues is a reflection of life, but it's looking at life through a specific lens. And there is a lot of sadness and struggle and despair in life itself. But it doesn't mean life itself is only about that. So about the blues, you know, I would say the blues is having sex with exploding endorphins and just ultimate ecstasy, but then having, and I don't want to get too explicit or whatever, you can always beep or take shit out, but so the blues is this like really amazing sexual experience full of ecstasy and exploding endorphins, but then with the post-nut clarity of realizing I am married. I should not have done that. The blues is about the worst pain you can feel and the happiest you can feel, and drawing a very thin line between the two and kind of bouncing them back together. So in essence, the blues is, like I've said a couple times before, the blues is about the unapologetic imperfection of humanity. So yeah, that would be, and you know, I gotta be a better blues artist because, you know, I majored in philosophy, and so I took it, and the reason why, other than more academic reasons for going into like bioethics in particular, which actually has a lot to do with the blues in my opinion, but one of the probably the main reason why I went to philosophy, and I wouldn't tell my parents this, the main reason why I went to philosophy was because I realized I could really take advantage of studying the blues for credit. And so any opportunity I could, you know, I would write about the blues in almost every essay I wrote. So for instance, if it was like a bioethics essay about visibility and normativity, boom, let me explain to you about why blind blues artists had kind of an advantage and a disadvantage at the same time. And so when I explain to you what I think the blues is about, I accidentally, I think, sort of resort to what I wrote about through the years in philosophy. Whereas, you know, what most blues artists back in the past, if you ask Lightning Hopkins, for instance, what the blues would be, he would go, the blues is you wake up one morning and old Annie Mae came to deliver coffee, but she forgot the coffee at home, and you sing, oh Lord, have mercy on my soul. And Annie Mae is a cute girl, you know. And then the average person who just interviewed Lightning Hopkins is like, all right, thanks, Lightning. I don't know what the fuck that means, but it's probably the better way to explain the blues, in my opinion.
That's beautiful. Great answer.
Yeah, that was really well expressed. That's funny. I think on that note, we might wrap it up. We've been going on a little bit over now. That was an unbelievable interview, Nick. Thanks so much.
For
coming
you
on
learned
and
us
letting us
on the
pick
blues,
your
man.
brain and explore the
appreciate
genre and your music and your background. Everything. It was absolutely fascinating, man. Just unbelievable.
So when you guys post these interviews, do you guys edit the interviews to make sure it reaches a certain time structure?
Not necessarily
No, but we
time
can.
structure.
No,
We can if you
I
want.
was just curious because I do ramble a bit, especially when I'm drinking coffee at like 6 p.m.
No, it's all good, man. I mean, we can edit.
We can do. I mean, there's not really a time limit that we set.
I mean, I was just curious,
you know.
but I wish the best of luck for y'all's thing. I appreciate what you guys are doing. I'm definitely gonna shout this out as much as I can and try to
Appreciate
get
that.
Thanks so much, Nick.
I'm gonna try and post it on my Spotify. You know, where you have a picture of what people want to listen to. I might say, listen to this. Keep doing what y'all are doing. If you ever want any ideas on new segments, I'd love to give you some.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we would love to have you do anything for us, man. Anything you want to do about blues. Like, we don't know anything about blues compared to you. Like, as I said, like B.B. King, Stevie Ray, Kebmo, like those are like the only blues artists I listen to.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're welcome back anytime on the podcast. I mean, you know, we only scratched the surface, I think, on what, you know, is possible to be talked about regarding your genre and your music. So, you know, we could do a follow-up, absolutely, if that interests you as well.
Yeah, for sure. All right, y'all. Good luck with the rest of what you do.
Hell yeah. Nick, it was great talking to you, man. It's good to see you.